Hola. From London, the latest from Podnews.net with Advertisecast. Spotify is to use AI to clone the voice of podcast hosts into different languages. The tool will translate a number of podcasters, including Dax Shepard and Stephen Bartlett, into different languages as an initial trial. They're working with OpenAI. Now, this isn't new technology. This is me, translated into Spanish using AI from a company called Veritone Voice 2 years ago.
Gracias a una nueva tecnología inteligente, los podcasts podrían estar disponibles en varios idiomas, sin sonar como un robot de los 80.
Rather worryingly, I got no idea what I just said. Podcast radio is to launch in the US in Detroit, Tampa, Charlotte and Fort Myers, working with Beasley Media Group and KMG Networks. AdLarge Media will facilitate network ad sales. The stations will be hosted by podjocks, including former K-Rock personality Gene Bean Baxter. Podcast radio has been operating successfully in the UK since February 2020, and this podcast is on it. How do you market your podcast? What are your biggest challenges? Capshow is keen to find out in a survey. It'll take less than 10 minutes to fill in. You'll find a link in our show notes and our newsletter today at podnews.net. Listenbox says it offers a way to subscribe to your favorite YouTube podcast in any podcast player. We link to that too. UK comedian Russell Howard is to launch a podcast of his own. Wonderbox will launch in mid-October. And Archwell Audio, the company owned by Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, have abandoned their application for an Archetypes trademark. The podcast was axed by Spotify in June. And in podcast news, Ask Men Anything is new today from the Betches Network. It's by New York comedian Emma Willman. She's on a mission to answer the one question that has stumped our universe for centuries: why do men? Why do men indeed? Peter and the Acid King, a co-production of iHeart Podcast and Imagine Audio, is new this week. The show delves deep into the grimy, chaotic world of the Los Angeles punk scene in the early 80s to tell the little-known story of an unsolved case, the brutal murder of a TV host. And the scripted podcast Case 63 returns today for a second season. All 10 episodes will be available for listeners to binge on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Spotify tell us it was the most streamed scripted podcast in the world and was adapted from the original show from Chile. This podcast is sponsored by Advertisecast. Advertisecast connects thousands of podcasts with thousands of advertisers and has been matching podcasts with brands since 2016. So find your fit. Join Advertisecast, the premier podcasting network, at advertisecast.com. And that's the latest from our newsletter. To read all the stories and subscribe, we're at podnews.net.